You finally move into your dream home, a quiet suburban neighborhood perfect for your kids, until the first letter arrives. It knows your names, your children's names, what rooms you sleep in. It ends with 4 words: I am the Watcher. What started as a dream turned into a living nightmare, and it happened to a real family in New Jersey. This isn't a ghost story, it's worse. This is the Watcher house. They thought they had found their dream home. 657. Boulevard stood like a quiet old guardian in the upscale suburb of Westfield, New Jersey. Big, elegant, peaceful. The kind of house people spend years working toward. And the Broaddus family had done just that. Derek and Maria, along with their 3 young children, had finally made it. A 6-bedroom masterpiece on a tree-lined street. Safe. Serene. But the house had secrets, and someone else didn't want them there. It started with a letter. Just days after they closed the deal and began minor renovations, a coat of paint, some fixtures, Derek found a crisp white envelope in the mailbox. No return address, no name. Just big handwritten letters on the front. To the new owner. Inside, typed neatly in black ink, was a message that made his blood run cold. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. It started kindly, almost warm, but the tone shifted quickly. 657. Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now. I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. Derek froze. This wasn't a welcome. It was a warning. The letter continued, strange, obsessive, and disturbingly personal. The writer mentioned the Broaddus children, not by name, but by nickname, ones only used within the family. He even mentioned the color of the children's room and the positions of the windows, as if he had been watching. I see you have already flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tsk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 unhappy. The end of the letter sent chills down Derek's spine. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I have been put in charge of watching 657 Boulevard. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted. Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Derek stood in his kitchen, the letter trembling in his hands. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a joke. It was personal. It was deliberate. And someone had been watching them very closely. He called the police immediately. The officer who arrived read the letter, his expression darkening with every line. There was little they could do. There was no name, no camera footage, no real crime. Not yet. But the officer told Derek something chilling. Don't tell your neighbors. Anyone around here could be the Watcher. That night, Derek and Maria sat awake in silence, staring at their children. Was it someone across the street? Was it one of the workers coming in and out each day? How long had they been watched? They began looking at every person differently. A few days later, another letter arrived. This time it was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Broaddus. Now the Watcher knew their names. Welcome again to 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carloads of your belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will. What was in the walls? What did he mean? The Watcher spoke of watching from afar, but the level of detail suggested something else, something closer. As if he was inside, or had been. Maria was the first to break. She couldn't sleep. She refused to bring the kids to the house. They hadn't even moved in yet, and already, it felt like the house was rejecting them. Derek set up security cameras. He scanned every angle of the street. They began digging into town records, asking questions. Who lived here before? Did they receive letters too? And then they found something odd. The previous owners, the Woods family, had lived at 657 Boulevard for 23 years. They never mentioned a stalker or a watcher during the sale. But after pressing them, they admitted something strange. Just before they moved out, they had received one letter. A similar tone. No threats, just curiosity. The watcher had written, "I have been watching the house and waiting for its new family. Have they arrived yet?" That was the first known letter. But the Woods had shrugged it off. The Broadduses were now dealing with the full fury of the watcher's obsession. In the weeks that followed, more letters arrived, each one more intense, each one more twisted. The watcher began naming the Broaddus children. He mentioned their routines, their laughter, where they played. One line sent Maria into a panic. "I am pleased to know your children are playing in the yard. One of them was using the easel inside. Is she the artist in the family?" They hadn't even unpacked yet. That easel had been set up just the day before, visible only from one side of the house, from a very specific angle. Someone was watching from very, very close. Neighbors were interviewed. Investigators were hired. A private detective. A former FBI profiler. But no fingerprints. No clues. The letters were postmarked nearby, but no camera ever caught the drop-off. Whoever this was, they were careful, experienced, invisible. The Broadduses still hadn't moved in, but the watcher didn't stop. He wrote about the past. He claimed the house had secrets. He spoke about the bloodline of the house, how he was chosen to protect it. 657. Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Broaddus family. Welcome to your worst nightmare. The family didn't know what to believe. Ghost? Stalker? Cult? They couldn't sell. No one wanted a curse at home, but they couldn't live there either. So they waited, in fear. And the next letter would make everything worse. The fear was no longer just psychological. It was physical, overwhelming, consuming. Derek and Maria Broaddus hadn't even moved into 657 Boulevard, and yet they were being terrorized inside their own dream. The letters weren't slowing down. They were getting worse, longer, darker, and now, threatening. It began with a fourth letter, this time, handwritten on thick yellow paper. No envelope, just tucked inside the storm door. The message began softly, and then twisted. The windows and doors of 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. I am in charge. Let the children play. I will be watching every move they make. Maria clutched the paper like it was toxic. Her mind raced. Who? Where? Why? How was this person always one step ahead? Even when they weren't living there full time, the watcher seemed to know when they visited, how long they stayed, what they were doing. Derek's paranoia hit a new level. He began sleeping at the house in shifts, armed with a knife and his phone in hand, waiting for movement. Every sound, a branch, a footstep, the wind, became a trigger. The house, once warm and full of promise, had become a prison of silence and fear. Maria refused to let the children near the property. They changed contractors. They tried to work in silence. But it was no use. The watcher was always listening, always watching, and now he wanted more. The next letter arrived, this time calling out the children by birth order and nickname. That detail had never been made public. Only someone watching for a long time could have known. I saw your daughter painting. She's got a lovely hand. Have you found what's in the walls yet? Tick-tock. The line that froze Derek. Perhaps you've already spoken to someone who knows me. Or maybe you invited them into your home. I walk by often. I know which windows give the best view. I know what time you come and go. The police remained helpless. The Westfield PD had no suspect. They looked into neighbors, scanned letter postmarks, even traced the handwriting. Nothing. No prints, no camera footage, no leads. The family hired a private investigator, a forensic linguist, and even a former FBI profiler. The profile was terrifyingly specific. Male likely between 50 and 70. Possibly retired, deep knowledge of the house and neighborhood, possibly living within 300 feet. The profiler said the watcher was suffering from a severe case of narcissistic rage. Derek and Maria turned their suspicion toward their neighbors. The Langfords, a strange, quiet family who had lived next door for decades, drew particular attention. Michael Langford, a reclusive adult son, matched the profile. He lived with his elderly mother. He was odd. He had mental health issues. He didn't socialize. The Broadduses told police, it has to be him. But there was no proof. The letters continued, and no surveillance caught Michael doing anything suspicious. Meanwhile, the town was changing. Word began to spread, not just about the watcher, but about the house. 657. Boulevard started to feel toxic, cursed. Contractors pulled out. Friends avoided the street. People whispered. Then came the fifth letter, the most chilling so far. 657. Boulevard is turning on me. It is angry with you. The house is crying from all the pain. You have changed it and made it so unhappy. I will punish you for it. Let your children play in the basement. I'll be waiting. Maria gasped. That basement? It was dim, old, tucked away, with only one narrow staircase in or out. Even when she was alone in the house, she had refused to go down there, and now the watcher was suggesting he was already there, waiting, listening, breathing. The Broadduses broke. They couldn't sell the house, not legally, not without disclosing the letters. But they couldn't live there either. They were trapped, emotionally, financially, psychologically. So they tried a loophole. They proposed tearing the house down and splitting the property into 2 lots to sell separately. The town said no. Too historic, too important. They were stuck with 657 Boulevard. And the watcher? He wrote again. You have failed. The house belongs to me. It always has. I don't care if you sleep there. I don't care if you leave. I only care that you know I am always watching. They moved back in with Maria's parents. Life began to unravel. The joy of buying a home turned into a living trauma. Their kids asked, when can we go home? But the truth was, they never had a home. 657. Boulevard had never belonged to them. It belonged to him. But just when the Broadduses thought it couldn't get worse, one final twist shattered everything they thought they knew. The watcher had one more letter. And this one changed the story forever. By now, the house wasn't just haunted by a mysterious letter writer, it was haunted by fear itself. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question everyone and everything. Derek and Maria Broaddus were no longer a couple trying to protect their family. They were a family breaking under pressure. The watcher had done what few villains ever accomplish. He had turned peace into paranoia, dreams into dread. They barely spoke at dinner. They didn't sleep without lights on. And worst of all, they were beginning to question each other. Was it a prank gone too far? Had someone inside the family started this to delay the move? Or was one of them hiding something? Maria wept most nights. Derek became obsessed. He mapped out every home on the street, watched hours of security footage frame by frame. He scoured online forums about stalking behavior and psychological warfare. Meanwhile, Westfield had turned on them. Once a picturesque community with well-kept lawns and friendly neighbors, the town had grown suspicious and hostile. Rumors spread that the Broadduses were faking the whole thing. A hoax to get out of a house they couldn't afford or to land a Netflix deal. The couple was blindsided. They had never wanted attention. But now, they were the subject of headlines, gossip, and doubt. Then came another letter. It had been silent for weeks, And just when they thought it might be over, the Watcher returned, colder than ever. I see you are still trying to escape me. The house misses you. It weeps for your absence. It is hungry for life, for sound, for children. But don't worry. I am still here, still watching. And just like that, the fear returned, thicker than before, suffocating. Derek snapped. He began staying up all night, watching, patrolling. He started following neighbors, taking photos. He hired new private investigators, including an ex-Marine with surveillance equipment. He didn't trust anyone, not the Langfords, not the mailman, not the construction crews down the street. Every smile felt fake. Every wave was a warning. Every person might be the Watcher. One day, Derek received an anonymous letter, but this one was different. It didn't threaten. It accused. We know what you're doing. You're trying to scare people, trying to sell your lie. You are the danger in this neighborhood and not the Watcher. Now the Watcher wasn't just tormenting the Broaddeuces. The community was too. Desperate and angry, Derek created a fake email address and sent threatening messages to the Langfords, trying to provoke a confession. It didn't work. The police found out. The case was dropped, and the Watcher disappeared. Again. For months. The Broaddeuces tried everything. They listed the home. No buyers. They lowered the price. Still nothing. They tried to rent it out, and when tenants agreed, Derek showed them the letters. They moved in anyway, on one condition. If another letter arrived, they could break the lease. And then, like clockwork, it came. The tenants had been in for just 2 weeks. A new letter was waiting for them, but this one was darker, more unhinged. To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is. Turn around, fools. Maybe you even spoke to me one day, walking by. Or maybe I am closer. Maybe I am the one who asked to borrow your ladder. Maybe I am the one who watched you unwrap your daughter's gift. Maybe I am already inside. And then, the final line. Maybe a car accident. Maybe a fire. Maybe something simpler. A sick kid. A violent storm. You won't know, but it's coming. And you will regret ever stepping foot into 657 Boulevard. That was the last known letter. The Watcher went completely silent, but the damage was done. The Broaddeuces never moved in. They lived with Maria's parents for years. Derek developed anxiety, insomnia, and anger issues. Maria suffered panic attacks every time she passed the house. They were changed, broken, watched. Finally, 5 years after it all began, they sold the house, at a loss of over $400,000, to a young family who wasn't afraid. The Watcher never wrote to them. Not a single letter. Not a word. The Broaddus family slipped into anonymity. The case went cold. The Watcher disappeared into legend. Some say he died. Some say he never existed. Others believe he still walks the neighborhood. Still watching. Still waiting. And then, long after the family had moved on, Derek received one final message. It came through a forwarded letter, sent anonymously. The paper was thick, cream-colored, typed, of course, no fingerprints, no return address. 657, Boulevard survived you. I watched you fail. I was there when you cried. I heard your daughter scream. I tasted your fear. And then, in large bold letters, I am still here. There was never an arrest. Never a reveal. Never a moment where it all made sense. Because the Watcher never wanted to be caught. He wanted to haunt, to linger, to become part of their minds. And that's exactly what he did. Years passed since the last letter arrived. The Broaddeuces had moved on, at least in body, but in spirit, they were still trapped inside 657 Boulevard. Maria still flinched at every creak in a hallway. Derek still double-checked every window before sleeping. Their kids still asked questions. Who was the Watcher, Mom? Why did he hate us, Dad? There were no answers, only theories and shadows. The official police case was closed due to lack of evidence, but the investigation left behind a trail of disturbing possibilities. The Langfords were no longer suspects. The police had no real proof tying them to anything, but their proximity and behavior left a stain of doubt. Another neighbor, an elderly man across the street, had been spotted staring through binoculars. He claimed to be a bird watcher, but birds don't wear trench coats at 1 a.m. Still, no charges, no names, no justice. So the Broad Deuces started theorizing themselves. What if it wasn't a neighbor? What if the watcher never existed? Or worse, what if he did, but wasn't just one person? Theory number 1, the prank. Gone too far. Some locals believed the watcher letters were a twisted joke, a bored teenager, a local writer with too much imagination, someone who wanted a thrill and got carried away. But then again, the letters were too detailed, too persistent, too cold, and there was never a confession. Theory number 2, real estate revenge. Others believed a jealous local had wanted the house. When the Broad Deuces bought it, they sparked envy and retaliation. Someone nearby knew the layout, the timing, the kids' nicknames. It could only be someone who lived close, very close. Maybe someone who still walks by 657 Boulevard every day. Theory no 3, the Broaduses themselves. The most controversial theory? That Derek and Maria wrote the letters themselves. Some said it was to get out of a mortgage they couldn't afford. Others believed they wanted attention, a book deal, a movie. Derek denied it publicly and emotionally. You think I would terrorize my own kids? My own wife? But even years later, some people in Westfield whisper, they wrote the letters, all of them. It was a scam. But if that's true, why did they never profit from it? They never released a book. They never did interviews. They lost money. They lost health. They lost trust in humanity. No one fakes that kind of pain. And then there's the darkest theory of all. Theory number 4, the watcher still lives there. Some believe the watcher was someone inside the house. A former owner, a squatter in the walls, a hidden space no one ever found. Remember that line? Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will. To this day, no one has discovered anything inside the walls. But what if they were never looking in the right place? What if the watcher had a key? What if he lived in the basement crawl space or in the attic, watching, waiting, whispering? Years after selling the house, Derek drove by one night. He slowed the car. The porch light was on. Children's toys were scattered across the lawn. Laughter drifted through an open window. A normal family now lived there, happily, peacefully. He wondered, why them? Why not us? And then, the thought struck him. What if the watcher only wanted to destroy them? What if it was always personal? The Netflix series came years later. Inspired by their story, the headlines returned. So did the judgment, but not the watcher. Not a single new letter. And so, the Watcher House remains one of the most disturbing unsolved cases in American history. Not because of what happened, but because of what never did. No arrests, no name, no closure, just a whisper in the dark, a figure in the street, a house that watches and waits. 657. Boulevard still stands today. The trees sway quietly. The windows reflect the sky. Families come and go. Life returns. But if you ever walk past it, take a moment, turn and look. You might see someone watching, not a ghost, not a shadow, just a person. Still, waiting. Because the watcher was never in the house. The watcher is the house.